Previously on Artistic Workout.
Students are gone. I still have a doctorate. Devotion, value, the three-dimensionality, chiaroscuro, pigs, and the weird things with camera obscura, room, the size of a box. I will make a separate lecture about perspective, forgot the name of history class. Stripes, buongiorno, Alzheimer grandpa. This very messy drawing, we don't care. Very messy drawing. Bad executions on purpose. Helping the brain. Messy drawing to useless information. Sloppy old fart, pigeon or a chicken. But I tell you how it is. Subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Artistic Workout. And what is it that I'm doing right now? Well, as I have said many times, I don't believe in talent, so if there's no talent, what is there to do? And the answer is to practice, and to practice in the right way, as well as to challenge yourself. If you're somewhat good with drawing faces and anatomy, like perhaps I am, then find something that you're maybe not as good as in that first thing. In my case, it would be to draw straight lines, because I'm not an architect, nor am I somebody who's drawing architecture on a regular basis. So that is something that I can challenge myself with to become an even better artist. Well, you know, one should learn throughout his life or her life. The challenge is to draw 100 A3 pages of horizontal lines without a ruler, trying to make it as good as possible. I was supposed to start it when I have 500 subscribers, but I don't want to be surprised, and a challenge of drawing 100 pages is something that I'm starting right now, but I will show the results when I have the 500 subscribers. Modest number. I feel lost in the space of white paper. I try different positions of my hand. I need to have a firm grip of the pencil. There is also a natural tendency of the arm to follow a curve instead of a straight line. And one has to compensate for it with a countermeasure, a different direction curve or an arch. And it takes a few trials and errors to do that, to calibrate the hand. Part of the process is conscious, but of course later on your muscle memory, as it is called, is it really a muscle memory? Are there brains, little brains in your muscles? So anyway, so later on your muscle memory kicks in and starts doing its job, and you become better and better in the process. And once again, my name is Bartosz Milewski. I graduated from Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle, Washington in painting and videography. Later, I received a master's and a doctorate degree at the Fine Arts Academy in Kraków, Poland, in painting. I'm a passionate teacher as well as an active artist in painting mostly, and drawing, and a bit of photography, as well as some other artistic activities. Today I will talk and demonstrate the basics of perspective, linear perspective, 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. 1-point perspective was developed in Florence at the beginning of the Renaissance period, which I had discussed in the previous episodes. These rules of 1-point perspective are following the ways in which we perceive the reality. However, we have to cover one eye with our hand or close one eye and stand still, as well as we have to sort of ignore the fisheye effect and other vanishing points that might come into play. The first painting in which one-point perspective was executed correctly with the help of the architect Brunelleschi was Mesaccio's fresque Holy Trinity, located at the Santa Maria Novella Church in Florence. And what am I doing here? I start with the horizon line. It is a straight horizon line in one-point perspective. Again, we're ignoring the fisheye effect, which would bend the horizon line and make it a curve. So it's a straight line. It is located at the level of our eyes, the eyes of the observer, or, as I had mentioned before, one eye, because we see three-dimensionally, so just cover that one eye or close it. Most of us have a 3D vision to a large extent, which I was told varies from human to human. So the vanishing point. In that vanishing point, all the lines that go away from us, parallel to the horizon line, so to speak, parallel to us, they meet at the vanishing point, the lines that go away from us. And this is the basis of creating the space in which objects that are further away from us appear smaller. By the way, some forms of so-called false perspective were used in the Middle Ages, but the Renaissance artists, being also scientists, had figured it out mathematically with the help of optical instruments such as camera obscura, dark room in other words, or a miniature dark room, which I had discussed in the previous episodes, or one episode. So as I had mentioned, and it is quite obvious, in perspective, objects that are away from us, as they move away from us, or as they were moved away from us, appear smaller than the objects closer to us. But what is exactly the height and width and depth of such object that is being moved away from us? What's the mathematical formula? If we want to know it, we need to draw a perspective grid, which we start with a horizontal line that is parallel to the horizon line, but it is located at the bottom of our visible space, or that is at the bottom of the page. We then need to divide it into equal parts using such an advanced measuring device as a pencil, for example. Once the lower horizontal line is divided into equal parts, we need to take these points and connect them with the vanishing point. Imagine attaching strings, ropes, wires between these points and the vanishing point. Obviously, they have to form straight lines, so there needs to be the tension in the wires or the strings. And that's what happened actually at Santa Maria Novella Church when they were first drawing the one-point perspective in the piece by Masaccio called Holy Trinity. Last time I forgot the name, now I remember. So by drawing that, we have taken care of the diminishing scale of the horizontal dimension of any object that we want to move in space, or we want to represent in our drawing. But what with other dimensions of such object? We need to also know the exact height and depth, how it will behave. So let's start with the depth. That is very interesting, I think. And they don't teach us really in our fine arts training that much. And I had to learn on my own. And also, I was instructed by an architect student a while ago. Plus, I watched it on television, but I had forgotten it by that time. I remember that it took the artists a lot of time and sleepless nights to figure it out. Okay, so imagine the lower plane is like a floor because it's exactly even. It's a flat surface, and we draw a diagonal line that runs from one corner to the opposite corner of the floor. And for that, I will use a ruler because that many lines may confuse me. You're welcome to use a ruler to draw everything this time. Once we have the diagonal line and we have the lines that we had drawn before, we have to find the points of contact between the diagonal line and the lines going away from us. These points serve as a mark. These points serve as marks for us to draw more horizontal lines, which have to cross these points. So these points are crossed by 3 lines. The lines going away from us to the vanishing point, the diagonal line, as well as the horizontal line, one of the horizontal lines. And now we can see how the depth of an object behaves in perspective. Or not the depth of an object, but just depth of anything represented in perspective. So the same depth is represented in perspective, thus is perceived as being smaller and smaller as it goes away from us. So naturally, we are also interested in how the height of such object would be perceived, how it would change with the space as it is moved away from us. To figure it out, we have to divide the vertical line. So imagine it's a vertical line, which is the edge of the room or the box in which we are operating. So we have to divide it into equal parts, the same as the floor. Next, we connect these newly established marks with the vanishing point. Further on, we need to extend our horizontal lines that are on the so-called floor to the vertical plane, which we can also imagine as a wall of our room that we're drawing, or the side of the box, for example, or whatever feels better. So if we extend these lines and we have the lines going away from us to the horizon, to the point, to the vanishing point on the horizon line, we are achieving a similar tiled structure on the wall as we did on the floor. And what now? Now we need to move to the ceiling and do the same thing. Divide the horizontal line, the edge of the box or the room, connect with the vanishing point, as well as extend the vertical lines that are on the wall. And then we move to the other wall and do the same thing. And congratulations, we have the perspective grid, which we could use for a reference drawing, a representation of a room or a street or anything else that is geometrical and occupies a space. So now we can use the perspective in a mathematical way. And as an exercise, please do this and then draw a room as I'm doing it right now in perspective. You are welcome to use a ruler, although I say, okay, Usually don't use the ruler. Try to practice making rather straight lines with your bare hand. Whoa. I'm also showing you how to draw cubes or cubicles in 1-point perspective. And please copy this exercise as well. I switched to a mechanical pencil, and not everybody knows that it has a sharpener on the tip of it. Not the tip, the end. Mechanical pencil made by Kohinor from Czech Republic. Perspective grids in 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, and even more points can be found online. And if you work in a digital realm, you can download them, after which you could put them on the background layer of your project, add another layer on top, and draw on it, in perspective, using the guidelines, using the grid. In the case of 2-point perspective, on the horizon line, which is at the level of our eyes, we have 2 points. 2-point perspective is used when we look at the side, at the corner of a box in space, or if we look at the corner of, let's say, a room. And I found a corner in my room. It wasn't in my house. It wasn't that easy, believe it or not, to have a corner that is not crammed, and I can also have a distance to photograph it in its entirely. So here's a bit of a mess in my house. Thank you. So here's some examples on how to do it. And use a crossing of 2 diagonal lines to set the middle of a rectangle. And now let's move to 3-point perspective. There could be more than 3 points, but 1, 2, and 3-point perspectives are most useful. In the case of 3-point perspective, once again, we have 2 points located on the horizon line, but there is also a 3rd point, which is located either above or below the horizon line. And unlike in the cases of 1-point perspective and 2-point perspective, this time our vertical lines are affected by perspective as well as the horizontal lines, unless the vertical line is directly below or above the 3rd vanishing point. We don't want to move the vanishing point, the 3rd vanishing point, much to the one or the other side of the center between these 2 vanishing points on the horizon line, because it just wouldn't look good. Imagine you are standing on a street looking up at a high-rise building. You will notice how the vertical lines go towards that other vanishing point. Yeah, but I should say, imagine you are standing at the corner of the building. So you have these 2 points, and then you have the 3rd point. In a different case, you're suspended somewhere in the air or standing at another high-rise building looking down, and you see the corner of that first building with lines that go towards the two vanishing points on the horizon line, which is the line of your eyesight, and vertical lines going towards the vanishing point located at the bottom. And I'm using the perspective in a painting of a street at Ursynów district in Poland, where the Vistula University is located, a place where I conduct art classes. And I often go there and have some Chinese dumplings. So when I have them, I sit by the window, I look outside, there's a street, and I would take a picture with my cell phone. So that's the street scenery. I'm drawing the lines on the pavement that go away from me, and then I use a diagonal line to establish the horizontal lines on the pavement. So thanks for watching, and I hope that I brought some understanding about how perspective works. I haven't discussed how to rotate objects in perspective, but that would be somewhat advanced and perhaps a topic for more presentations in the future. The life of an artist should be constant practice. One should do it with some pleasure, and I'm going back to drawing horizontal lines. I wish you lots of pleasure while practicing, discoveries, satisfaction with your progress. Please subscribe if you haven't, give it a like, write a comment, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.